This is Mario from shockingfit.com. I'm here in Tallinn, Estonia, and decided to shoot a quick video for you guys with this beautiful scenery behind me. The topic of today's video is muscle confusion. The basic premise is that you need to keep switching up your workout plan to keep getting results. So how much actual variety do we need in our workout plan to keep progressing and to keep getting, to keep building muscle and gaining strength?
Sacrificing everything. I traded working 9 to 5 for the minimum for working non-stop, so my life be like a cinema screen.
So the myth, I guess, occurred mostly is familiar with from the magazines. They keep promoting this thing that you need to shock your muscles into growth, that you need to keep changing exercises, not let your body adapt, like you have to keep switching things up. I think it came to be from the 60s when Joe Weider started making these muscle building magazines, and he was promoting the whole workout routine where you need to keep switching things up. And it was really good marketing back then, and is really good marketing right now. You probably heard about it maybe from doing some kind of Beachbody program like P90X from Tony Horton. He's mentioning this a lot in his marketing. He's like, yeah, we need to keep switching it up, dude. We need to keep switching up. I mean, it is a very common concept that a lot of people talk about. How much is it actually true? So when, as a natural or even as any form of athlete, specificity is key. If you want to get strong at something, you have to do that thing. I mean, me doing leg pressing will not give me a lot of carryover to me doing squats. I mean, I might be really strong with the leg press, my squat might be very weak. If I want to improve my squat, I'm not going to do the leg press. Specificity is key. What do you practice is what you will get good at. So why is this exercise variety so important, and why is it so emphasized? I think the primary factor is, before we even dive into the technical details of what actually happens in the body and why it's useful, I mean, the fact is it's really good marketing, right? People want to have novelty, you know, people respond very good to the new shock method, you know, people respond and they click on these kind of headlines, they click on these titles, they read these articles that the magazines keep feeding to you, that there is some kind of magic out there, that all the pros, all the good guys are doing it that you are not doing, and if you figure that out, everything else is solved. So consistency is not a very catchy clickbaity title. It's more like, oh yeah, I found this special biceps exercise that it's supposed to completely transform your biceps in the next 4 weeks. So that headline is probably going to get a lot more clicks. So basically, what we go through when we lift is different phases. So as someone who is just starting out to lift, if you're a beginner, you probably realize that you need to have a lot of coordination to make a lift happen. So if you're doing a squat, if you're doing a deadlift, if you're doing a bench press, you probably notice that over time you get better and better at performing the actual movement. So your technique improves. It's natural. You keep doing it, you keep practicing it. Same as riding a bicycle or driving a car. You know, the more you do it, the better you get. The same is in the gym. It's a skill, you know, it's a technical skill that has a mastery curve. So eventually you're going to get good at it the more you do it. But the skill itself, it has different phases, right? So the initial phase of every skill in the gym or in general is like a learning neurological phase, where your brain is getting adapted to the pattern and is getting better and better at it. So if I take, for example, a movement, and there's been studies to actually confirm this, a movement in the gym takes about 8 to 20 weeks to actually completely neurologically adapt to it, where you would no longer be hindered by your muscles triggering at the same point and other adaptations that are preventing you from exhausting the maximum benefit and stimulation from that movement. So imagine you keep switching up, like the general advice is switch up your exercise every 3 to 4 weeks. Imagine if you keep doing that, and you're always cutting off your learning phase in half, and you're always starting the learning phase from the start with a new movement, you never got a chance to actually exhaust the maximum benefit of a single movement. So the whole myth of confusion, what it ends up being is a guy is like going to the gym with no plan and just using his instinct training to get the maximum results. I've seen people like that. So I have no plan, I just listen to how my body feels, right? But that thing never gets results. I mean, if you want to really get the maximum results, you need to plan for things. You need to actually create a toolbox for you that you respond to, that your body responds to, that kind of fills in the gaps of what is lagging, what is growing really fast, what is working for you, what is not working for you. That's how the pros do it. That's how you should be doing it. So the whole thing, switching it up every 3 to 4 weeks, is not effective as you might think. So the whole 8 to 20 week study, I'm going to link it below the video so you can check that out. It's about neurological adaptations with the exercise. But as I said, most people keep cutting it off in the 3 to 4 weeks period with introducing whole new movements, so they never get the benefit of doing one thing. Where does where does this have practical implications for you when you try to build muscle, you want to build strength? So specifically for muscle building, you want to analyze your body, right? You want to see which muscle group is highly developed, which one is not developed, which one is lagging, which one is responding to training. A quick example from me, for example, when I tried to do a bench press, when I did it in the beginning, when I was doing a lot of lifting, I couldn't feel my chest working at all, right? I could not feel it. So there I needed exercise variety. I needed some isolation movement to kickstart that pec growth. I need to grow my chest, and I couldn't do it with just bench press. For some people, they connect really good with the bench press. So for muscle building, I guess the rule of thumb is, besides having your really good compound movements, 1 or 2 really solid compound movements that you're going to get good over time, you want to have a few isolation movements to fill in those gaps where you have the lagging muscle groups. That is where the variety plays. And you don't want to switch these things for at least 8 weeks. If you're intermediate or a beginner, you want to keep that movement for at least 8 weeks in order to get the maximum out of it after you stop the learning phase. So if I pick something like a cable crossover machine, which is an isolation movement, I need to do that movement for at least 8 to 10 weeks in my training plan to get the maximum out of it. And then I guess if I would observe that it's not working anymore, then I would consider switching it up and changing for another exercise. But even that choice is made completely by observing what I respond to well, what I connect to good. So for muscle building, you're more looking at what exercise do I have to have in my toolbox to stimulate that specific part in order to keep growing. So it's more like you looking at your body like an architect, looking at a building, looking at a sculpture, for example. If you want to look at it like that, it's an art form where you can pinpoint exactly what you need to work on. Specifically, if you're missing real delts, if you're missing mid delts, or if you're missing some kind of part of the triceps, you can dissect that muscle into the biomechanical parts. For example, for the triceps, it has 3 heads. You can dissect the muscle. You can pick an exercise that specifically targets that part of the muscle, which is what bodybuilding is about, right? It's about creating the version of yourself that you want to be and the version of yourself that you think is your goal. For strength training, specifically for someone who's a powerlifter, for example, or for someone who's practicing power bodybuilding like myself, I'm training for strength and muscle growth at the same time in the same week using daily undulating periodization. If you downloaded my 12-week workout plan, which you can get for free, you'll see that the first few days in the week I focus on strength training. Those would be like 5 rep sets or lower. And for these sets, for these exercises, I'm practicing the basic 3 powerlifting movements. I'm doing the squat, bench press, and the deadlift. So here, I'm no longer concerned with is that muscle stimulating growth. I'm more concerned of if I'm getting stronger in that movement. So it's a bit different than bodybuilding. So for these days, I'm going to analyze my squat, my bench press, my deadlift. I'm going to see which part of the movement is actually weaker. And based on that, I'm going to choose to add 1 or 2 more assistance movements that will fix that weak link in the chain. And that way, I'm going to add a variety, not for the sake of like my rear delts are not developed. I'm going to add variety just to get that weak chain stronger, and that will carry over into me having a stronger squat or me having a stronger bench press or a stronger deadlift. So that is the way I choose an assistance movement and choose exercise variety when it comes to powerlifting. When it comes to bodybuilding, as we said before, you want to choose based on underdevelopment or lagging muscle groups. That will be the primary criteria. Generally, one thing I want to point out here is that variety and your adaptation to variety will depend also on your experience. As a beginner, if someone is just starting out, beginners don't need that much variety, because for a beginner, you want to spend the bulk of your training, spend the time practicing the core, compound, basic movements. That's something you need to get good at. And the more time you spend and invest into that, the better you're going to get. So for a beginner, I generally tend not to recommend that much variety in their training. For an intermediate lifter, things a little bit changed. So for intermediate, you're at a phase where you already kind of know your body, you know your weak links, you know what kind of movements you could improve your strength, what muscle groups are lagging, so you can add those isolation work exercises in there. For intermediate, they respond really good to added extra variety. But when you move on from that intermediate to an advanced phase, that's where you actually start to be very, very specific, because you already kind of determined of what you want to work on. So if you want to be a bodybuilder, if you want to be a powerlifter, then you kind of make your training more tailored toward that, and you're going to work more on that specific variety in there. So it's going to be less and less than an intermediate who is kind of between bodybuilding and powerlifting, who's just doing it for sake of general strength plus looking good. So there, variety can help a lot because you're working on multiple things at once. So I just want to conclude this video with a short story that I just read recently. It's about a magazine, a famous muscle building magazine, a fitness magazine. They reached out to a guy who is well known in the industry for creating really good workout plans, for getting really good results for his clients. So to reach out to him, they emailed him, hey, can you create us a workout plan for arms that we will publish, we'll feature you, we'll put you on the cover of a magazine, right? And the guy was like, yeah, why not? Why shouldn't I do it? I mean, let me see. I'm gonna make the best workout plan for you that I can. So the guy was working on it for a few days, and he shot them an email and sent them the plan and then the article. And they emailed him back in 2 days saying, oh yeah, we cannot feature this. It's nobody's gonna click on this. Nobody will actually read this. What ended up happening is that the guy pretty much wrote a good article, a good, solid, evidence-based article, which had curls, had normal biceps exercise, had nothing flashy. So they emailed him and told him that nobody's gonna read it because there's nothing new in it. So it just be consistent, work on the basics, figure out what works for you, what doesn't, and adapt, and you're gonna get results. But consistency is key. And they didn't want to publish it, and in the end, nothing happened of this article. The guy didn't get published, nothing. The magazine didn't get a new article, and they probably published some new scammy, clickbaity titled article which has no value. The point that I'm trying to make here is that there's a lot of marketing out there, a lot of confusion, a lot of different kind of advice. So when you look at something, when you actually analyze where you get your information from, make sure that it actually has some evidence behind it. So it's really, really important, because you don't want to waste time. Time is the only actual currency we have that is limited. So you don't want to waste time on something that doesn't work. As one example would be here, the muscle confusion, which is, there's a lot of misinterpretations of that, and I think it harms a lot of people's results in the gym because the marketing for it is very, very strong and very good, so we kind of fall for it. So the same that happened to this guy when he tried to write an article that actually does have good information. The magazine declined it because it wasn't flashy enough. It wasn't nothing new. People respond to new stuff. And one good rule that you want to look at is, if something has been around for a while, there's a high likelihood chance that it's going to be around for that much time more. So if telephone has been around for 100 years, it's pretty likely that telephone will be around for 100 more years in some form or the another. So a really good writer on this is Nassim Taleb from his book Anti-Fragile. So if you want to check out that's one of his concepts. It's a pretty cool concept to consider of. And I just want to conclude this video as well with final scenes here from the main square in Tallinn, Estonia. Hope you enjoyed the video and learned about muscle confusion and how to apply this to your training. And as always, thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to click the like on the damn video below. Leave me a comment if you're stuck in here for a while, because it's a very long one. And as always, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Once again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon. Peace.
A young nigga with $1 and a dream, and these Nikes on my feet, trying to stay about the streets. So I'm rhyming, pulling 187s all on these beats, instead of on the concrete, submitting my future while they were focused on what they cheap. But shit, I'm like a cheap head honcho. Tell me that it's impossible, I give it to you pronto. Be working all these